Okay, so when you hear the name Elon Musk, what comes to mind? Tesla, right? SpaceX? Maybe X? But here's the thing. We're not just going to list off his companies today. We're going to look at his entire career as a kind of grand strategy, a series of calculated steps, almost like a game, all designed to solve one single massive problem, getting humanity to Mars. So let's start right at the beginning of that quest.
And really, that entire journey, it all boils down to this one central question. If your life's ambition, your dream, is to make humanity a multiplanetary species, well, how on earth do you pay for it? I mean, really, how do you fund a dream of Mars? This question, this is the key. It's the key to understanding everything that happened before SpaceX and Tesla even existed. So to figure out where a dream that big even comes from, we've got to go all the way back to his childhood, where a deep love for science fiction started laying the groundwork for a life spent trying to turn that fiction into fact. He was born in Pretoria, South Africa, and by his own account, had a pretty lonely childhood, especially after his parents divorced. So what did he do? He escaped, right into the pages of books. He was just devouring these sci-fi and fantasy novels. But here's the important part. It wasn't just about reading, it was about learning. While a lot of other kids were playing outside, he was inside, teaching himself how to code. At 10 years old, he was already starting to build the toolkit he'd need to make those fantasy worlds a reality. And then, at just 12 years old, he codes and sells his first video game. It was called Blaster, and he made $500 from it. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but this was huge. It wasn't just a kid's hobby. It was the first proof of concept. He proved to himself that he could turn ideas and code into actual money. And that pattern? Well, it's one he was going to repeat over and over again, just on a much, much bigger scale. All right, so fast forward a bit. Musk moves to North America and finds himself in the perfect place at the perfect time, right in the middle of the dot-com boom. But here's the thing. For him, the internet itself wasn't the end goal. Not at all. It was just a means to an end. It was the launch pad, the way he was going to get the capital to fund that way bigger interplanetary vision we talked about. Just take a look at this timeline. The pace is absolutely relentless. I mean, think about it. In 1995, he starts Zip2 with his brother Kimball. It's basically an online city guide for newspapers. Just 4 years later, boom, they sell it. And does he take a vacation? Nope. The same year, he jumps right back in and co-founds X.com, an online bank that you might know by its later name, PayPal. So, that sale of Zip2, it personally netted him $22 million. Now, for most people, for most entrepreneurs, that's it. You've made it. That's the dream. But for Musk, nope. This was just level 1. This was the seed money he needed to place a much, much bigger bet. And here we go. This is level 2. When eBay comes along and buys PayPal in 2002, Musk's personal take is around $180 million. Now that is a whole different level of money. This is the kind of capital where you can stop just dreaming about science fiction and start building real-life engineering projects. The vision was finally funded. So what do you do with $180 million? I mean, seriously, what would you do? You could retire to an island somewhere, right? Live a life of luxury. Or if you're Elon Musk, you take basically all of it and you pour it into two of the riskiest, most capital-intensive, most absolutely audacious ventures you can possibly imagine. 1, making space travel cheap. And 2, kickstarting the world's move to sustainable energy. Okay, let's start with SpaceX. Before Musk came along, space was pretty much just for governments. And the way it worked was crazy expensive. You'd build this massive, incredible rocket, you'd use it once, and then you just throw it away in the ocean. SpaceX's big idea, the core disruption, was reusability. The idea of building a rocket that could fly to space, come back, land itself, and then be used again, that was an absolute game changer. It completely flipped the economics of space travel on its head. And believe me, it was not a smooth ride. Not at all. The first few launches were failures, catastrophic failures. The company was literally on the brink of bankruptcy, but they just kept going. They persevered, they figured it out, and eventually perfected the Falcon 9 rocket. They went on to become the first private company ever to send humans into orbit. And now they're going all in on Starship, the massive vehicle that is actually designed to take us to the moon and, you guessed it, Mars. Now, as if trying to revolutionize the aerospace industry wasn't enough, at the exact same time, he's taking on the entire auto industry. While the old guard was still focused on gasoline engines and just making tiny improvements year after year, Tesla came in looking and acting like a Silicon Valley tech company. It was all about batteries, all about software, and it had this grand mission to force the world to adopt electric vehicles and to do it by completely sidestepping the traditional dealership model. And from the very beginning, there was this clear 3-step master plan. Step 1, build a super expensive, high-performance sports car, the Roadster, just to prove to the world that electric vehicles could be insanely cool and incredibly fast. Step 2, use the money and the hype from that to build affordable cars for the masses, like the Model 3 and Model Y. And finally, Step 3, go beyond just the car and create an entire sustainable energy ecosystem, tying it all together with solar power and home batteries. So, you've got rockets and electric cars well underway. You'd think maybe he'd take a break, right? Nope. This is where his problem-solving ambition starts to get even, well, weirder. Even more science fiction. He starts looking past the roads to what's under the roads, and he starts looking past the car to the actual brain of the person driving it. And that brings us to Neuralink. The core idea here is something called a brain-computer interface, or a BCI. So what is that? Well, to put it as simply as possible, it's a way to create a direct communication link between a human brain and an external device, like a computer. Now, Neuralink really has 2 major goals. The first one, the short-term goal, is all about medicine. The hope is to use this technology to help people with severe neurological conditions, like paralysis. But the long-term vision, that's where things get way more controversial and, frankly, straight out of science fiction. The idea is to eventually allow humans to merge with artificial intelligence so that we can keep up when AI becomes super intelligent. And then you've got the boring company. This one tackles a problem I think we can all relate to: soul-destroying, mind-numbing traffic. And his solution isn't flying cars, it's actually much simpler. Just go underground. The vision is to create this whole network of tunnels, a sort of 3D transportation system, where electric vehicles can zip around at high speeds, completely bypassing all the traffic jams up on the surface. Of course, it's impossible to have a conversation about Elon Musk without talking about the controversy. His journey has been just as disruptive to public conversation as it has been to actual industries, and it's created a legacy that is, to put it mildly, complex and very, very polarizing. And this really gets to the heart of it, the central tension of his public image. On one hand, you have the undeniable impact. I mean, he made reusable rockets a thing. He forced the auto industry to get serious about EVs. But on the other hand, there's this constant cloud of controversy that follows him everywhere, from his wild social media presence and his notoriously intense management style to some really serious legal challenges and ethical questions about his future projects. But here's the bottom line. No matter where you personally land on all the controversies, his impact is just impossible to ignore. He has fundamentally changed the direction of multiple massive industries, all by refusing to accept the status quo and by constantly pushing the boundaries of what everyone else thought was possible. So that leaves us with one last big question. You have the innovator, the guy who actually builds things, you have the agitator, who constantly provokes, and you have the visionary, who's dreaming of colonizing other planets. Innovator, agitator, visionary. How will history ultimately judge these different parts of his legacy? What will he be remembered for? Well, that's a story that's still being written.